Divine Sunderer is really broken right now, and Koreans are abusing it on so many different champs. Abyssal Mask on supports has popped up as a great strategy too. In today's video, we'll be sharing those setups along with a bunch more insane new Korean builds you need to be abusing for patch 11.12. Since Divine Sunderer is pretty crazy on so many different champions, are there any picks that you think are flying under the radar with it? We'll be covering a few in this video, but we won't be able to catch them all, so be sure to let us know if you've discovered any new tech down in the comments below. For all your meta and educational content needs, you've come to the right place, so don't forget to drop a sub if you haven't already. And without any further ado, let's get started. The Warmog's buffs last patch have made the item way more effective, and one champion who's arguably the best abuser is Shen. A few patches back, Shen saw a buff to his ultimate where the shield now scales off his bonus health. This buff pushed Shen back into meta, and since Warmogs provides you with an immense amount of health, the synergy is just way too nuts. On Warmogs and Bommy's completion, you'll have 1.1k health. This is the perfect threshold to activate the Warmog's health regen passive. The minimum shield on Shen ultimate at level 12 has a 320 base and a 17.5% bonus health ratio. This means your total minimum shield at 2 items will be 520 HP. Pre-buff Shen could only have a 350 health shield at this point in the game, so the difference is massive. The core build is Warmogs into Frostfire Gauntlet and Titanic Hydra. Hydra works perfectly third item in this build path since its passive scale with health. Take Grasp as the keystone with Shield Bash, Second Wind, and Overgrowth. Cheap Shot and Ultimate Hunter are for secondaries. One champion Koreans are loving the Divine Sunderer rush on is Camille. Most Western players, however, are still building Trinity Force. The core build is Divine into Titanic Hydra. Health stacking from Divine and Titanic work very well together. Like we mentioned with Shen, both passives on Titanic scale with health, so building Titanic with Divine is so much better than building it with Trinity Force. Taking on Asterix third adds to the synergy even further. The item combo is so great for split pushing, as you can shove waves extremely faster to Titanic and take down towers even faster with the constant Spellblade procs from Divine. All the health from the setup make Camille way more forgiving as well. If you're building Trinity into Ravenous, you've got less margin for error, and a simple mistake can be punished immediately. Runes are Grasp of the Undying with Shield Bash, Bone Plating, and Overgrowth. Grab Inspiration Secondary running Magical Footwear and Biscuits. One of the most underrated junglers with Divine Sunderer that Korean pro Yosik has been abusing it on is Kindred. Short cooldown on Kindred Q gives Divine really great value. Some extra burst and sustain for those extended fights works so well with Kindred's kit. Second item is a Blade of the Ruined King, which provides even more % health damage. The build is so well rounded as you have a nice chunk of durability from Divine while still possessing great consistent damage threat. All the sustain is quite insane too. Health back from Divine, lifesteal from Ruined King, and even more healing from Conqueror. Final item is Hurricane as you transition into the late game and begin to teamfight a lot more. Follow Conqueror up with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace. Secondaries are Sudden Impact and Ravenous Hunter. Viego is another jungler that pros like Canyon have been spamming Divine Sunderer on. Viego has a very short cooldown on his Q, so just like Kindred, he's getting a lot of power from the Divine Spellblade proc. Since you want to be in the thick of things, finding those resets in the middle of fights, the added durability of the build is so nice. The standard Kraken into Blade build leaves you very vulnerable, while Divine still deals great damage and keeps you so much safer. Second item is Blade of the Ruined King, and then transition into Asterix third. Viego already has really solid sustain in his kit from Q, so when you add on the extra healing and shielding from items, it's so difficult to take him down. You're a mix of an assassin and tank with this setup, which makes it so oppressive. Runes are Conqueror with Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace. Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight are what Canyon runs for secondaries. Koreans are abusing a bruiser setup on Talon and are winning at absurd rates with the setup. Gore Drinker is the first item, and players are winning 56% of the time when rushing the item as opposed to 51% when rushing Prowler's Claw. Black Cleaver was just buffed last patch, and so was Gore Drinker a few patches back, so the setup has become indirectly stronger. After grabbing Cleaver second, you transition into Asterix third and become an Assassin Bruiser mix. What's really the point of building all-out lethality if you can build Bruiser, still deal immense damage, but survive for way longer? That's the idea behind this setup on Talon. You'll take Conqueror as the keystone with Triumph, Tenacity, and Last Stand. Secondaries are Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter. More of a bruiser build for Rumble Mid that Korean pros are taking advantage of is a Riftmaker Rush with Conqueror as the keystone. You have really great extended dueling power with this setup and can take advantage of Rumble's buffed passive extremely well. All the healing turns Rumble into an even more devastating skirmisher. Since Rumble has very short cooldowns on all his spells, you get so much value out of the Riftmaker passive. Sticking in those fights and keeping it stacked up will be no issue at all. Demonic Embrace will be the second item in this build, turning Rumble into the ultimate battle mage. 650 bonus health from your 2 core items combined with ramping damage from Riftmaker and added armor and magic resist from Demonic Embrace synergize so well with how Rumble wants to play. Third item to round out your core build will be Azania's or Void Staff, depending on whether you need the defenses or want full offense. Of course, take Conqueror as the keystone with Triumph, Tenacity, and Last Stand. Taste of Blood and Ultimate Hunter are the best secondaries. A new build that brings some life back into Senna AD carry is a Divine Sunder rush into Manamune second. After the Frostfire nerfs and Divine buffs, Sunder has replaced Frostfire extremely well as a nice durable setup that still offers very strong DPS. Manamune second provides Senna with the ability to spam out abilities non-stop. 20 haste from Sunder and 15 haste from Manamune are stats Senna really likes since she can spam that Q out even more often. Manamune and Divine both have on-hit passives that can be triggered by Senna Q, which offers so much consistency. You have to keep in mind the Rage Blade synergy was nerfed a while back, so with Divine buffed, this new setup has really started taking over. The complete build is Divine Sunder into Manamune and Black Cleaver. Pick up Glacial Augment as the keystone with Free Boots, Biscuits, and Approach Velocity. Presence of Mind and Bloodline are the best secondaries. Although the more popular Western Kog'Maw build revolves around a Wit's End rush, Koreans are spamming Shield Bow and having way more success. Wit's End still has its place though, as you'll want to implement it as a second item purchase. Kog'Maw's main weakness has always been his lack of mobility and ways to survive in fights. That's why we're seeing so many of these defensive-oriented builds popping up and taking over. Building Shield Bow and Wits offers the perfect mix of defensive and offensive power, which makes it extremely broken. If you're playing against a heavy AP enemy composition or a few assassins, the build becomes godlike. Breaking through the magic resist from Wit's End is already hard enough, so having to deal with the shield from Shield Bow is even more painful for the enemy. For even more durability, you can grab a Randuin's Omen third or a Hurricane if you feel safe enough and want more teamfight power. Runes are lethal tempo with Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace. Opt for Taste of Blood and Ravenous Hunter as secondaries. Last patch, we covered the viability of Frozen Heart on tanky supports, and another traditional tank item that's working great for supports is Abyssal Mask. Abyssal has the highest win rate for any second item purchase on picks like Leona, Nautilus, Maokai, Alistair, and Blitzcrank. This doesn't mean you want to purchase it every game though, it just shows how valuable the item can be when bought in the correct situations. If you're unaware, the passive on Abyssal Mask is triggered when you immobilize an enemy, causing them to take 15% increased damage for 5 seconds. That's why it has so much success on these heavy CC engaged supports. Imagine a Leona hitting a multi-man ultimate, applying that 15% damage amp to everyone, and you can see why the value can be extremely high. You'd want to pick up Abyssal in games where the enemy has at least 2 AP threats. If not, you're just wasting all the gold spent on magic resist. Map it out in champion select, think about whether Abyssal would work well for the game, and look to abuse it in the correct situations. Koreans have been spamming Maokai Support way more than other regions over the past few patches, and a very unique tank build is what's winning the most. Deadman's Plate Rush into Turbo Chemtank second and Thornmail third is the complete build. Deadman's is the interesting part of the setup, as you don't see it very often, but works so well with Maokai's kit. Move speed is such a key stat for Mao because of the point-and-click route from W. As long as you're able to get into W range, then the engage power and pick potential is so effortless, which is where Deadman's comes in. The 60 bonus move speed from Deadman's allows Maokai to maneuver around the map very quickly and capitalize on the enemy's mispositioning very well. Once you pick up Chemtank, there's no counterplay to Maokai's hard engage, as you'll be zooming in with a million move speed. Be sure to max Q first, W second, and E last when building this tankier route. Take Aftershock as the keystone with Font of Life, Bone Plating, and Unflinching. Secondary runes will be Biscuits and Time Warp Tonic. So there we have it, guys. Those are 10 new Korean builds that are super broken right now for patch 11.12. If you enjoy this kind of content, we've got lots more planned, so don't forget to drop a sub if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching, have fun with all these builds, and we'll catch you back soon.